15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
My dad used to say that.
Sure, yeah. It's from Geico.
Yeah, whenever I would ask my dad for life advice, he'd sit me down and say, son, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. And look at me now, a well-adjusted adult with a drawer full of plastic bags I'll never use.
Okay, I'm confused. Was your dad a licensed Geico agent?
Nah, he was just a real good dad.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
My dad used to say that.
Sure, yeah. It's from Geico.
Yeah, whenever I would ask my dad for life advice, he'd sit me down and say, son, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. And look at me now, a well-adjusted adult with a drawer full of plastic bags I'll never use.
Okay, I'm confused. Was your dad a licensed Geico agent?
Nah, he was just a real good dad.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
The bass is dropped, kind of, sort of, in a delayed way. Welcome to Internet Issues in Orlando version of Soccer Down here. This is obviously a chopped up version just a little bit because the first part of the show was one, trying to get everything to function in a different setup on the road. And that's my part. That's my fault. I'm holding my hand up. I'm Jason holding my hand up. Second, made it a little bit difficult to, at times, communicate with one another at the very beginning of the show. But we got it all sorted out, and you will hear from the point where we did get it all sorted out what happened on today's show. Jessica Charman returned, filling in hour number 1 for John Nelson, who was away on high school football duty. Mike Conti filled in for all of hour number 2, and Jarrett Smith hung out in both portions of the show. So it was a fun, different conversation today. A lot of talk about the U.S. women and the Netherlands and that match as it was concluding. A lot of talk about the penalties and strategy in penalty shootouts. Really good to get Jess's perspective, being a goalkeeper and understanding that mentality. A lot of talk about the women's game as a whole, some talk about the Gold Cup from last night, a lot of Atlanta United and Orlando City preview for tonight in Orlando. We will be live on 92.9 The Game this evening starting at 7:30 with the Five Stripes Countdown. Kickoff will be at 8:10, we think, according to MLSsoccer.com, and we'll have an abbreviated full-time report tonight on radio, on the Odyssey app, on the Atlanta United app as well. But without further ado, this is Soccer Down here on the road edition from Orlando. Technical difficulties and all. Please enjoy, and thanks for bearing with us, and thanks for listening to SDH. Okay, maybe people can hear me now as I've switched to my third different audio source of the show. Hopefully this will work. We're into the second half of extra time.
Jason has subbed a sub. That's where we're at.
I've subbed the sub. It's always an embarrassing thing to try to do, but that's where things stand this morning. So hopefully we're at least somewhat functioning as a show as the U.S. and the Netherlands are 2-2 in the second half of extra time. Yes, Mazzano, I need Mateo to be able to come on the road to fix technical difficulties. I think what I've learned is I just need to bring my whole big audio setup with me on the road everywhere I go because that's the easiest thing to do. Yay. Learning.
Yeah, I fully intended to get up and be ready for this game, maybe catch the end of the Australia game, and then after the USA game, I was about to fall asleep and thought, I'll just check in and see what's going on with Canada and Mexico. And then 105 minutes later, I was just basically deceased.
Talk about soccer after dark with the Olympics as well. It's soccer in the middle of the night. It's so hard because these fixtures are so enticing, and they've been great games. They've been goal fests. And one thing that I can't help but notice is how competitive the field at Euro 2022 on the women's side is going to be as well.
Yeah, I think it's something we're learning across the board here in CONCACAF and in the Olympics. Like, the level of play across the field. The octagonal is going to be ridiculous for World Cup qualifying on the men's side. But the Olympics, and Jess, we talked about it a lot in 2019 during the World Cup. The level of play outside of the powers has really jumped in a big way.
Yeah, it's incredible. Games that you would have expected to be blowouts 5-6 years ago, even less than that, are now very competitive matches. And it's one of those where, when I think back to games that I used to watch with the US women's national team, the respect that other teams used to show the US, because they were intimidated, they were afraid. But now people are bringing the games to the US. And a lot of that is to do with the grassroots development. It's to do with the development of the professional games across the world now. It's not just the US, We as young girls in England used to look towards the US as being the only place where we could take our soccer and play it in college and play it professionally. But now so many players from the US are doing the flip-flop and going back and playing it for Man City, playing for other teams. So it's a really exciting time for the women's game. But you have to wonder, is this the end? And I think it already has come to an end of the pure dominance of the US women's national team. And that's not to say that they're not contenders in every tournament they play in. Of course they are. I'm not saying the US women's national team isn't a powerhouse. They're the World Cup champions. They might come out of this one positively, but the gap is closed and the level of competition is higher than ever. And that's a very exciting time, even if you're a US women's national team fan. It's an exciting time for the game as a whole because it's developing and the level is increasing every single tournament.
This tournament is the end of the U.S. being able to walk into a tournament and be the favorite, no question. This is it. And a big reason why is you heard the Dutch attitude before the game. I mean, they were very clear. And the Dutch have won a European championship. The Dutch hadn't been to a World Cup before 2015. And they came in and said, we're not afraid of the U.S. anymore. Like, that is where everything's different now. You've got a lot of players worldwide that can play straight up with the U.S., maybe more technical, and the athleticism gap is not what it used to be. And Jess, you mentioned the Women's Super League and players playing all over the place. I think one of the big talking points coming out of this game, no matter how it finishes, is going to be Lynn Williams and starting the match and being so involved early. First, where has she been for so long? An NWSL product. And two, why is she not still in the match?
And we talked about Lynn Williams a long time ago. I remember us previewing her and talking about her being an understated player. And unfortunately, when you have so many big name stars, quote unquote, in the US women's national team, sometimes people are selected potentially based on who they are rather than how they're playing. And you see it in the men's game as well. You look at, and I'm going to use England as an example, you look at Harry Kane, he wasn't having the best tournament, but he stays in the game because he's Harry Kane. And I think it's one of those where we mentioned Rapinoe. She's been pretty much silent, but she is still on the pitch despite being a weaker link in the team right now. Mm-hmm. Is that because of who she is rather than how she's playing?
I think another talking point out of this one, Jarrett, is the VAR and the referee crew has had a lot to do in this one. I don't remember as many goals that have been checked or wiped away for offside or decisions that a VAR has had to do in a women's match. This has been a very busy day for the ref crew.
It has, but I think they got them right.
I do too.
Very close. Kristen Press, just, like a half step, doesn't get the full step back onside. Good ball from Rapinoe. Brilliant touch from Press to bring that down and to put it in the back of the net, but just a half step off, couldn't get herself squared back onside. I think it's going to be a thing that continues, though, with the women's game as it does get more technical, as it gets faster. Because you talked about the athleticism. USA doesn't dominate athletically like they used to. the game as a whole is going to get faster. We talked about this in the men's game with VAR, but it applies strongly to the women's game too, maybe more radically in terms of the way the exponential growth is going to go. It's getting faster, and you're going to need VAR because you're going to need you're going to need to be able to look at things a time or two because of how quickly it's all going to happen, how people are going to play on the back shoulder and play the lines, and how quickly everything is just going to happen, even off the ball. It's an impressive development, and yeah, it's also a good tonight. I think it's a good a good example for VAR to be able to point and say, we're not bad. You don't have to hate us.
Jess, so we talked about it before. Like, playing fast you can do it a couple different ways. You can play fast with pace and play direct and over the top and run and chase. But the Dutch show a different way of playing fast, and it's what's always impressed me about this team, is they're very technical, so their first touch allows them to play faster. They make quick decisions, so they're able to play faster. They might not win sprints, but they can play fast in their own way.
Yeah, and they make the ball move fast. They have that link-up play that makes the ball move fast. Their first touches set them up to break and counter and transition very fast, even though it's not direct. And for me, it's a more entertaining style of soccer to watch as well. And you look at direct, and that's always been, again, one of the biggest adjustments for me moving across from England to the US was the emphasis on athleticism, on how quick can you get the ball long and go direct. It was a different style of play when I moved into playing college ball. And I feel like the US is adapting too and learning, that you can't just guarantee athleticism. You can't just pick the tallest players, the fastest players, the strongest players. You need to develop and work on your ball skills, your technical side of things. And from a coaching perspective, I'm noticing that at the grassroots level, though, too. There's a lot more skill-based sessions being developed in the grassroots level here in the US, which is an important way to develop the players for the future of the match.
Oh, we have another VAR incident. Alex Morgan thought she had a goal to go up 3-2. Not so fast.
I've only just seen the damn goal. I've only just watched the ball go in the net, guys. How delayed can I be?
You're pretty delayed because I was trying to hold back and let the whole VAR thing play out, thinking you guys might have been able to catch up, but not so fast.
She's clearly offside.
Yeah. I think both of the extra time sequences are offside.
Oh, man, it's just I think that's 9 or 10 goals that have been called back for the United States in this tournament.
But is that lack of discipline on the runs?
That's a good question.
Does it start to become that habitual? I'm all for narrow calls, but at the point where you're saying 9, 10 goals called back, is it a habitual issue with the timing of your runs or the speed of the play in terms of the people releasing the ball? Are they not on the same page enough? Is there a habitual issue there when it's this many opportunities that are going amiss?
I think you hit it on the latter. I think some of it is holding the ball a little bit too long. I think the run is good, the idea is good, but too often the pass is held a step too long. So I am just for you guys' reference, I'm now in the 116th minute. I'm at 1:15:10 on the clock.
Yeah, so I'm a whole minute behind you. I'm at 1:14:10.
Welcome to watching on Telemundo from a hotel in Orlando. No NBCSN in the hotel. No FS1 either, so I had to watch on Univision last night for the U.S. and Qatar, and we'll talk about that a little bit here as well. But penalties are looming for the U.S. women against the Netherlands. And look, I mean, at this point, Jess, I want the goalkeeper's perspective. The Dutch had an opportunity to win this match in regulation time from the spot. There still would have been time to play, of course, but Lieke Martens had the opportunity to go up 3-2 and didn't strike it well. Listenair made the save. Does that help you going into a shootout if you're a Listenair?
Yes, I think it does, because you have that confidence and you've beaten one mind game and you're feeling good about yourself from 12 yards. However, Martins is going to want to right that wrong. She's going to be kicking herself from the spot. So it goes two ways. She either takes that frustration and buries the ball in the back of the net, or she lets it psych herself up too much. But I think Nair is a very good goalkeeper when it comes to penalties. Think back to, Women's World Cup, all of that jazz. But what's important to think about is the mind games. We saw mind games last night in the US men's game. It's all about, for the goalkeeper, you've got to take every little advantage you can. And if it comes to a mental battle, you've got to, start trying to work that out. We've seen goalkeepers, talk to each other. I don't know if you all watched Emilia Martinez for Argentina against Colombia and his chatting. And it just shows that sometimes, you've got to get in each other's heads. And he did exactly that. I'm sure we'll see some of that this morning. God, I'm losing track of my time. However, I'll be very interested. We've seen a very active VAR. Will we see VAR in this penalty shootout have a say as well when it comes to goalkeepers stepping off their line? Because if that happens, I'm going to be tearing my hair out.
Yeah, I mean, look, they've had plenty of time to adjust. And I think goalkeepers have adjusted for the most part. I see more often than not goalkeepers take a step back before the kicker approaches the ball to then have a little bit of extra room to make sure they're on or over the line when they make their save. I think they've adjusted really quickly. But Jared, I want to ask you, so when Martins took the penalty, there was a VAR check of the incident that led to it. It wasn't a super long one, but it was enough to where it looked like Martins was up, ready to take the penalty, and then had to wait. And she didn't look confident or comfortable as she was going up to take that. That is another element of taking penalties that I think we leave out of the conversation sometimes.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that once they did the check that she was up there and ready to go. I was kind of expecting some dark arts from the U.S. to be in her face. Maybe Nair's back getting some water. Maybe like U.S. player comes and talks to the ref or goes and gets in her ear.
Alyssa Nair did not watch Emiliano Martinez in the Copa America, that's for sure.
I expected some more dark arts, but there's almost something more terrifying about the fact that Alyssa Nair didn't want dark arts and said, I don't need anything for you to miss this penalty. I'm just going to save it. And, yeah, it's going to be interesting because she went keeper's bottom left in the penalty she converted and in the one she just missed. So, let's say we get to this, I'll go to Jess's opinion on this. Like, let's say we get into shootouts and she's up there again. She's made and missed to the keeper's low left. Is she going to go there again? What's in your head if you're the keeper? Is she going to try this again?
And this is where goalkeeping becomes such a mental battle. It's so difficult because you're doubting yourself, you're second guessing. But if I'm the forward, I'm going to flip it around. If that's where I'm comfortable striking the ball, I need to stay doing that direction. Because the thing about a good penalty is if you take a good penalty and you connect with the ball, the goalkeeper should not save it no matter if they guess correctly. No goalkeeper should be able to save a ball that's buried into the side netting, even if they guess the side correctly. So I think as a forward, you have to pick your side. Everyone has a way that they strike the ball naturally more comfortably. And I think you stick to that instead of second guessing and changing your mind, particularly when you're in a position where you are perhaps more anxious because you've had that pressure and missed. If I'm there, I think I'm going with her sticking with the direction that she took it last time.
Yeah, and that's just one penalty taker, and we are very, very close to penalties now to decide who advances to the Olympic semifinal. Looks like that's where we're headed. The U.S. has, I believe, a little more experience in these situations than the Netherlands. In big moment situations, they do. In actual penalty shootouts, I think they do as well. Remember, the Dutch hadn't been in a World Cup before 15. They did win the Euros in 2017, but they were played in the Netherlands. They got to the final of the World Cup in 19. I don't remember if they had any shootouts along the way. I don't believe that they did. And now they're going to have to face a team in a shootout that is known for its mental strength. And there's a few players for the Netherlands that I'm not too worried about in terms of this, Medema for one. But for the U.S., as now I'll go ahead and spoil it for you guys, we are going to penalties. For the U.S., for who's on the field right now, Jarrett, who do you think takes a penalty?
I think Rapinoe's taking one.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean, Kristen Press.
Haran, I would agree with that.
Do you go Kristen Press here?
I think so.
Do you go with a Julie Ertz? I can't remember if she's taken them.
She has. I would go with Julie Ertz to take one.
I was going to say I would see her doing the Harry Maguire style penalty, just burying it in the net. You know, I just think she's a power before anything. She's going to be able to hit the target from 12 yards and put the ball and the goalkeeper in the back of the net. Honestly, I would confidently select her.
I can't decide if I would take a long look at Crystal Dunn or not for this.
Morgan?
Alex Morgan's out there too. Morgan's
Lavelle?
out there. You've got choices, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of different choices. I would probably go Rapinoe, Ertz, and not in order yet. Rapinoe, Ertz, Haran, Morgan. This is where it gets a little tough. Probably Press? Press or Lavelle is what I keep coming back to.
I don't know why, but I just get this feeling that Lavelle would try and do something a little too pretty and it wouldn't pay off. I don't know why. I just have that gut feeling inside that sometimes she can be a little bit too pretty and it can go wrong.
Like try and side foot it into the net and catch it off the post?
Yes, that kind of penalty.
So Colonel throws into the chat on the Twitch pitch, conventional wisdom was Netherlands would blow out the struggling U.S., so pens is a good result. I was not, and I think I've been pretty big on the Netherlands side since 2019. I didn't think they'd blow out the U.S. I thought they could win, and I thought they would win based off current form. I didn't think a blowout by any stretch. If getting to penalties against a team you beat in a World Cup final 2 years ago is a good result, then what we were talking about before with the U.S. not being a prohibitive favorite in any tournament going forward is absolutely the case now. If this is an acceptable result, then yeah, we've got some problems. But I think we're kind of already there, to be perfectly honest. The Netherlands had opportunities to win. I think the U.S. had opportunities to win. It was a really good match. I mean, it's an instant classic in my book. One thing I had that I wanted to ask you guys about before we get deeper into penalties, there was a run late in the second half of regulation time with Kristen Press driving forward, and I was screaming for her to switch it to the left side to Alex Morgan, who I thought was wide open, able to get in behind, was onside for once, and Press tried to do it herself. That's going to be one for me that we'll look back at as a huge missed opportunity.
I mean, you're gonna run into situations like that, and when you look back, especially you dig into games like this where there's been opportunities on both sides. I mean, when Megan Rapinoe's dancing on the Dutch on the left side, and she takes that near post shot that goes about a foot wide of the net and goes on the wrong side of the post, would you rather her kind of try and chip that to like a Lindsey Horan on the back post? Or do you want her to take that tight angle shot, try and get inside near post? I mean, I wonder if some of it is just kind of not anxiety, but kind of eagerness of when they get in on goal. They're trying to,
rush.
They kind of reassert their dominance, for lack of a better word, on the on the international stage. Of, we're going to just go back to burying people, and then they get a little tunnel vision-ish.
So since you guys are roughly synced up and I am ahead of you, I am going to pretty much lay out of reacting to the penalties. So
oh my gosh.
You guys can react.
Rude.
I'm trying to see who's going to go first. The Dutch are going to shoot first. And they're going with Medema. But I won't react because I'm like a minute ahead of you guys. And I think most of the people on the Twitch pitch are synced up with you guys. So
and so
here we go.
Would you rather have gone first or second?
I'd always rather go first.
Yeah, I think always going first because you set the statement and put the pressure on the opposition. I don't want to know what I have to do. I want to show them what they need to do.
Yeah, I would always rather go first. If I feel like it can put pressure on the wrong person later in a shootout if they're going second and they know everything's on them.
We need ABBA penalties, right?
What's that?
When are they going to switch up the ABBA penalty
Oh,
system?
that's a good question. I know some competitions have done that. All right, you guys will be seeing this here shortly.
35-yard shootouts. Do the 35 yards. Let me see Alex Morgan open up from 35 yards and sprint to the keeper and have to get it off her foot in 4 seconds.
I would love to see
American
that.
style pens.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to see that.
Welcome to early MLS, where we thought, what if penalties, but not?
But we used to do that in soccer tournaments as kids, and they would call them American style penalties. It was so cool in like five-a-side tournaments. I still remember that.
All right, are you guys up with the first penalty here in a second?
Yeah, listen there, stand internet.
Okay.
Okay, I'm watching the... I don't know if we're in sync. Oh. This is so... Okay, the whistle just got blown for me. I'm behind.
No, she's literally taking her steps back right now for me.
Wait. Oh my god! No way!
Big save from
listen
Nair.
here.
That wasn't an easy save.
That's
That's
not
a great
easy,
save.
but again, do you think she had enough? I don't know. I feel like she side-footed it. It was like more of a side instead of driving her laces through the shot, right? There wasn't enough power on that.
Yeah, it seemed like she opened up and gave it away.
All penalty saves are good penalty saves, though. There is no such thing as an easy penalty save.
100%.
Let's get that out there, goalkeepers.
The only easy penalty save is when somebody tries to go Panenka and the goalkeeper doesn't move. That's it.
But even that is difficult because you have to out-psych them, Jason.
That's true.
Come on.
That's true. It's easy. It's the easiest. How about that? Is that fair?
Oh, glorious.
Well, she
I
got
don't know.
cute. You weren't wrong.
But she got cute and followed through.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just gonna side foot this into the upper 90. Watch this.
But that was kind of what I was thinking, but I thought maybe she would not get her angle completely correct. But prove me wrong. Good job.
Yeah, it was a good penalty from Lavelle.
And to be fair, the easiest penalty to save is the one that gets either skied or just like put off.
The one where you stand there and it goes over.
Those are the best, where the keeper doesn't flinch and the kicker somehow misses it still.
That's a good one. And that's tough to follow when your role model or like a leader in your team misses a penalty. For you to then have to follow is always difficult because, you know, someone that you've trusted that was going to finish, you've now got a lot on your shoulders. So that was a nice, cool finish.
And I know it's much easier said than done, but if you're the American team at this point, it's, hey, just finish your shots.
That's exactly it, though. As a goalkeeper, you have the mentality that all you have to do is save one. If you save one, you've done your bit, and now it's up to your team.
The mental side of it is really interesting watching these two teams because the U.S. looks more comfortable in these moments.
The run-ups just look different. You know, they just have a different walk up to the ball as well, where they feel like they know they're going to score versus, am I going to score? You know, it's a different mentality.
Yeah, very much
There's
so.
almost like looking at Alex Morgan, there's a joy in it right now. It's fun. Like, whereas this looks like suffering for the Dutch, which
Oh my
is
gosh.
understandable.
Look at that facial expression as she walks up to the ball.
Yeah.
It pains me watching her. I'm like, I
The third
almost
Dutch?
want her to score.
Jess,
Yes.
the third Dutch taker.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
Alyssa
looks
Nair's
like
looking
she
at
is
going,
really
yeah.
not enjoying the moment at all.
Like she's going to throw up.
Yes.
Oh!
Just wait. There you go.
And then she almost did throw up when it hit the post and went in.
I think she still threw up, Jess. I think she still vomited in her mouth. But man,
Oh my god, she is holy.
I thought she was going to put it
This
over
is
the
not
bar.
what I signed up for. I did not sign up for a live penalty shootout watch along when I agreed to come on this morning.
Yeah, you feel it completely differently from a goalkeeper perspective.
PTSD, guys, and from an England fan perspective as well.
Yeah, there's that too. That's true.
Damn, the US practice these freaking like reverse drag penalties, right? Like they all look the same almost.
Mm-hmm.
They know what they're doing. They've been here so many times. This is just old hat to them.
It is, and it's showing.
Dutch, it's new territory. Yeah, I mean, even the fourth taker for the Dutch, like she's, I can't tell, like she's a little harder to read. The third one was going through.
The
some
third
stuff.
one was ghostly white, like she was going to pass out on
Yes.
the way to the spot. That's for sure run. Oh, the stutter step. Why are you gonna do the stutter step?
You can't do the stutter step when you look like you're about to vomit.
Or when you do such, yeah, you
Listen,
didn't
there
earn
is
it.
just. I feel like Alyssa Nair is inside her head too, though.
Oh, you didn't earn the stutter step. I'm sorry, girl.
No. When you look like you're gonna vomit stepping up to take the penalty, just get it over with. Just hit it.
Just blast the crap out of it.
Just hit it down the middle. Just hit it hard. I mean, don't try to get fancy with it when you can barely control your breathing.
Oh. Okay. Of course it's her.
But that's such a good penalty to hit
Oh.
on.
And that's the thing. She still has that quality. She had a poor game, but she's got the mental ability and the quality from 12 yards to bury a pen like that, you know. But still, wasn't impressed with her performance throughout the 120.
No, there's still a lot to improve for the U.S., but they get through. It wasn't pretty. The Dutch are going to rue this one for a long time. And, you know, it's funny, we talk about how going first, we'd rather go first. I'd still rather go first, but when it flips hard is where you miss the first penalty or it's saved and you don't convert. And that's when you just lost the advantage that you had. Really surprised that Medema ends up getting saved in that moment. I think that was the best save that Nair made of the two penalties.
And that was the most beneficial save because, as we mentioned, when it's a player of the quality that pundits, that the teammates, that the fans all think are going to put you in the lead, when that player misses, it changes everything mentally as well because you all of a sudden think, wait a minute, if she's getting her pen saved and she is a comfortable, confident penalty taker, what am I going to do? And that seemed like the mentality of these players walking up. You could read it in their heads that they were not 100% sure that they were going to score from 12 yards. They knew that there was a decent opportunity that the goalkeeper was going to save their penalty.
Yeah, I mean, you look at really all of them after Medema, who I think looked fine and had probably been in that situation more than most of her teammates. And here's another factor, too. I mean, Lieke Martens is one of their usual penalty takers. She did not – maybe she was going to go fifth. We don't know. But she missed that penalty in regulation. And, I mean, there were shots of her in tears after the final whistle. I mean, this is a player who has won a lot of things at Barcelona in her club career. You're taking her out of the mix. Medema's penalty is saved. Those are your two best players. And when they can't convert in those moments, and then for the U.S., the two that have been there for so long and done this so many times, and Alex Morgan and Megan Rapinoe, and then Kristen Press and Rose Lavelle also convert, that mental strength that Jill Ellis often talked about with the U.S., that we have seen time and time again, plays out again here. The Dutch have to learn how to win these situations. The U.S., they feel the pressure, and they thrive in it.
I'm sorry, this has been an exhausting, 4 times for me. Emotionally crippling when it comes to this sport. Oh my God. There is something in terms of the mentality, though, that, we talk about Rapinoe not having a great game coming off the bench. But there is that almost psychotic confidence of, yeah, the last 20 didn't come off, but I'm going to hit this ball so perfectly into the upper 90, and there's zero doubt that it's going to work. Like, there is that kind of almost insane confidence that your top players are going to have, that everything hasn't been working. Okay, it's going to work this time though, and it's going to happen. They're not wavering. Yeah, we talked about, I mean, the confidence overall going into the shootout of, we've been here before, we've done this. Whereas the Netherlands are going to have to chalk this up to an experience and carry it over into the next time. Because, we've been as a U.S. fan, you've been on the other side of this. You go back to the World Cup in, God, what was that? Was it 2011?
Yes. Which one? Where they lost to Japan in the final?
Japan.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, you've been there before. You lost the shootout in the Olympics in 2012. I think it was. Yeah, 2012. Like, you've learned from those experiences, and it's something the Dutch have to do now.
It is something, because they are a very talented team, and they're going to be around for a while. But now we look at the semifinals, U.S. and Canada in another Olympic semifinal, and
whoever wins that game might not have enough healthy bodies for the final.
Well, Sweden and Australia are going to have a rematch from the group stage as well. That group that the U.S. was in, and we talked about a poor performance for the U.S. in the group stage, that group, 3 of the 4, the 3 teams that qualified, are in the semifinals. It's nuts.
But you know what? It's also helpful. We talk about this in tournaments. When you have a weak group, and you don't have competitive matches in the group stages, it can make it a real shock to your system when you get into the knockout rounds and you're suddenly playing a competitive team. I think that those close matches and those battles, and the fact that all the teams in that group had struggles and had to up their performances to come out of the group, it helps them in the knockout rounds instead of games where you are comfortably winning, every game in your group stage.
Yeah, and 2 of the games for the Dutch in the group stage were a waste of time, and they scored a ton of goals. The 3-3 with Brazil was an amazing match, but in the 2 games where the Dutch were tested, 3-3 with Brazil, who were knocked out this morning on penalties by Canada, and 2-2 with the U.S. in extra time, where the Dutch are knocked out in penalties. They're really close. I think they've gotten better in the last 2 years, but they're not quite there yet. And now we get a rematch of the Olympic semifinal that is one of the best matches of any gender and any competition I have ever seen in my life. U.S.-Canada from 2012 at Old Trafford. I think Morgan won that one late in extra time. That had the infamous 6-second goal. Indirect kick. Jess, I'm sure you have thoughts about that one.
Don't get me started on goalkeepers in the 6 seconds.
It's the only time I've ever seen it called at the top level. It's the only time I've seen it called, and it's the last time I've seen it called. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's never going to get called properly. You might get a little wave from the referee, but they don't even give... The only time you really get in trouble for time wasting is from a goal kick. That's like a goal kick, you see yellow cards given. No one's ever got in trouble with the ball in their hands. Although I'll say that I've seen a couple lately of handballs given from punts where the keeper is trying to gain the extra yardage. Yeah. I've seen that in college a couple of times. That was a new one too. Usually, you get a warning, but incredible, really. 6 seconds. We've seen goalkeepers hold it for 20 seconds and not get penalized.
Yeah, that game was insane. And Canada comes in wanting revenge. And it's a younger Canadian group that I think has a little bit to prove here. And they had to survive penalties as well, so neither team really has an advantage coming into this. In the other semifinal, Sweden beat Australia 4-2 in the group stage. I would say Sweden is definitely the favorite, but when you have a goal scorer like Sam Kerr, you always have a puncher's chance. If you're Australia, I would still be looking at Sweden to advance to the final. And U.S. and Canada, it feels like a little bit of a toss-up.
It feels like it feels like a knockdown dragout. Welcome, and you're right. Canada's a young team. Hey, Canada, welcome to your rivalry on a big stage. For some of you, this is going to be the first time that you've been involved in this. 2012 was a long time ago. That's 9 years. Some of these players for Canada were teenagers or younger at that time. They might have been at home watching that one, and now they get their shot at the United States. I want to see how this goes because it should be an insanely fun matchup in terms of everything being tense and wild and probably chippy. Abby Wambach's not there to get punched in the face this time.
There's
Although
that.
I think that was Brazil that punched her in the face.
I think Abby got punched in the face multiple times in multiple different places.
It's true. I have to imagine it happened at Florida too, when she was just manhandling the SEC.
I'm sure it happened in Athens when she was brutalizing players from Georgia during her time at Florida. I did not enjoy those times at all.
No, I'm sure you didn't. But
I think actually one player did have her leg destroyed by Abby Wambach, completely unintentionally, but just due to the collision. I think it actually ended a player's career.
Jesus.
Yeah.
It should be a lot of fun. USA Canada is a rivalry, and on the women's side, I mean, the men's side maybe. Although I think Canada is going to want on the men's side, Canada's waiting to get another crack at Mexico. I think after last night, they're rip roaring, ready to go.
It was almost the U.S. Canada Gold Cup final. Jess, we haven't talked about.
I said last night though they're gonna take a steel chair to the back of the Americans just to get another shot here, running in with the Money in the Bank or something.
Jess, we haven't talked about the U.S. men and surviving last night, and you had a big penalty save from Matt Turner. Matt Turner is starting to get people saying, should there be a competition for the number one spot for the U.S. men's national team? What do you think?
I think it's been incredible. And I think some of the saves he made, reaction-wise, positioning-wise, having the cojones to stay in a spot and wait and be patient instead of anticipating where the shot was going, incredible. But what I find more insane is when I did some Twitter stalking, as you do when you fangirl a goalkeeper that's doing really well, and I had no idea he started playing goalkeeper in high school.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that's one of
he
those
was playing
where
baseball and then flipped.
It's incredible because we talk so much on this show about the art of goalkeeping and the way that goalkeepers are developing differently now, and the importance in the youth game of nurturing these goalkeepers and developing their foot skills as much as their hand skills. Well, throw yourself in goal at 14, 15, 16, ignore all the youth stages, and you'll play like him. I think he doesn't look as raw as one might expect as a goalkeeper that started late. A lot of goalkeepers you see begin later on in their careers have a little bit more of a rawness to them. But technically, to me, he looks sound. And I think you're right. I think he's claimed his number one jersey, honestly. And it's going to be a tough bill for anyone to get in. And again, you have to look. He's playing regularly. It may be an MLS, but he's playing regular minutes. And that's the sharpness that a goalkeeper that hasn't necessarily played regular minutes, Stefan, doesn't make those saves because he hasn't got the match sharpness and intensity. So it's one of those where goalkeepers want to make the jump to play in Europe. They want to play for the best teams, in the world and teams that they grew up idolizing. But if you're going to sit on the bench, is it going to be more detrimental to your career on the international stage than if you stay and play consistently in MLS?
That's the fascinating element of this I think is being left out of the conversation. Is Zach Steffen's the number one for Greg Berhalter? I think he probably still will be, but when you look at Matt Turner playing week in, week out, and Zach Steffen at Manchester City probably playing in the cup competition, it might be a situation where Matt Turner's played his way into first-team time. Jess and Jarrett, before you guys go, Mike Conti is on, so everybody say hello.
What's
Hey,
up,
Mike.
Jess? Well, hey,
Hello, Mike.
Jess. Hey, Jared. Jess, it's funny. Someone recently tweeted at me. I think Jason was going to miss a game or something, and they said, they should get that Jess Charming to fill in for Jason. I thought, that's about the most appropriate misprint I think I've ever seen on Twitter.
Well, thank you. I will take Jess Charming. It might be my new pseudonym to go underneath.
Good to hear from you guys again.
All right, Jess, when are we getting you back?
Just text me. Schedule with a baby, a job, trying to avoid talking about the Euros. As long as there's no 2020 Euros talk, I can come whenever you want, Jason. It's great to be back. Thank you for having me.
I figured we needed to give you some time after the Euros, so good to have you back in the rotation. We'll talk again soon.
Take care, everyone.
Jarrett, are you leaving us as well?
I am, but I'll be back.
Okay, Jarrett will be back. Jarrett actually has work to do, but he will
That's a threat.
make
an
another
actual
appearance, so we will see you here in a bit.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, it is you and I now on SDH. I've been battling Orlando Internet, and it's a little sketchy, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's doing all right, and we figured out a way to make this show happen. We watched the U.S. women and the penalties and all the chaos. Did you get a chance to watch this morning?
Saw the penalties. It's interesting. I saw a tweet yesterday when we landed saying that the next 12 hours could be the darkest 12 hours in U.S. soccer history.
It was close.
But it wasn't, And
it was
and
close.
Look, but it wasn't. And look, find a way to win. Even when you're not playing at your best, find a way to win. Men did it last night. Women did it this morning. You and I were both very concerned about this matchup for the women. They got it done. Now they're going to play for a medal. Will they play for the gold or the bronze? We don't know, but they're going to play for a medal. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of the resiliency. I'm proud of the way that they handled penalties. I thought they were stone cold in the penalties, which, again, that's kind of a coin flip deal, but I thought they handled the pressure remarkably well. They have not played at nearly the level that we're accustomed to seeing the U.S. women's national team play in this tournament, but they're in the semifinals. That's all I care about. And, honestly, I think they might match up better with Canada in 2021 than they did in 2012. So it's going to be a very, very interesting next couple days, but for all the doom and gloom predictions out there, and I know it was not easy last night or this morning, they got it done. I'm proud of the men. I'm proud of the women.
Yeah, it was close with both. The U.S. men got through. I think one thing we've learned during the Gold Cup is the development that Qatar has been doing here lately since they I pause and hesitate to use the word won the right to host the World Cup because I don't know if that's the right verb. The development they've done on their national team from a soccer playing perspective has been really impressive. They were a good team and a good team to watch in this tournament. And, ultimately on the field, they made the Gold Cup better. They tested the U.S. A lot of different times in that match. I thought Miles Robinson played well. I thought Matt Turner was huge. And they found a way to get through. I think the other thing we learned out of it is Gyasi Zardes is the number 9 for this team right now in this tournament. Maybe not by the time we get the World Cup qualifiers in September. But Daryl Dike is struggling. Maybe it's just a lot of games in a short period of time without rest. I don't know. Dike's really struggling. Zardes is the guy he needs to start in the semifinal.
I agree. And I think Zardes might actually be the leader in the clubhouse in the octagonal as well.
I would agree, too. I totally agree.
Yeah, we know how Berhalter rates him. And look, as much as we're waiting for the next number 9 to emerge in this country, whether it be Daryl Dike or someone else, Gyasi Zardes has been very, very consistent and ultra reliable. When you get into the octagonal, especially when you get into situations where you're playing on the road, I want that reliability. And I think Berhalter feels very, very safe with the guy that, obviously he coached at the club level. And he has a lot of familiarity with at the national team level, too. So I think he's the leader in the club. I think DK's ceiling is extremely high. Mm-hmm. I think it's enormously high. And I think, if he ends up going back to Europe, that only allows him the opportunity to approach that ceiling. But right now, for me, I'm with you. It's Zardes. When you get into a qualifying situation, when you get into a final, as you're going to be in on Sunday, especially against a team like Mexico, I need safety, I need reliability, and I need someone who's consistent. And Zardes right now is more consistent than DK.
I think the other thing we've learned in the Gold Cup is that Miles Robinson is ready to go. I think he is ready for World Cup qualifiers and ready for big games.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know what Alexi Lawless is thinking, keeping Miles out of the top 5 center backs in the player pool right now.
I'm glad I've missed those.
Yeah, and look, I mean, Lawless has identified good players. Yeah, I'm not saying that Miles is clearly way ahead of all 5 of those guys, but Miles is absolutely one of the top 2 or 3 center backs from the United States at this moment right now. It will be very interesting to see him in that elevated competition in the octagonal, but he should be there. Walker Zimmerman, despite getting hurt in this Gold Cup, should also be there. I really believe it kind of reminds me of the point guard position in the NBA, Jason. We were talking about, and I'm sorry for bringing that comparison up because we were talking about this a lot during the draft show last night as I was fighting with Orlando Internet here in our hotel. There are so many excellent point guards in the NBA right now. Some teams have the luxury of having 2 excellent point guards in the NBA right now. I feel like there are so many excellent center backs in Major League Soccer right now. And I don't think the fact that Miles Robinson plays in Major League Soccer as opposed to somewhere in Europe should be held against him when we're rating the best center backs who can play for the U.S. men's national team right now. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what more Miles has to prove in this tournament. I think he's had a couple man-of-the-match caliber performances in this tournament. Thought he was really, really good against Jamaica. Set up the only goal of that match. Thought he was very, very steady again last night. And you're right. Hats off to Matt Turner. Outstanding goalkeeping performance by Matt Turner. Very, very well done.
He's one of the best shot stoppers. Turner's one of the best shot stoppers I've seen. And
yeah,
there's more to goalkeeping than just being a shot stopper. And I think especially in the way that Greg Berhalter wants to play, and as we've seen here in Atlanta over this past season with goalkeepers being more involved in the build-up, that's not something that Turner's really done much of. That will be an issue in a Berhalter system. But the numbers back it up in MLS. The numbers have backed it up in this tournament. I don't fully subscribe to XG explaining the game completely, but when you look at the number of goals that he takes away from opponents, and you measure him by XG, and they are good chances that he is making saves on, he is so valuable. And it's hard to do that. What if it's a different goalkeeper, do they make that save, et cetera, the wins above replacement kind of stat. We don't really have something like that. But Matt Turner feels like he is really testing the bounds of being a goalkeeper that not just keeps you around in games, not just makes some big saves, but wins you games. And that's hard to leave out.
Yeah. It is. That reminds me a lot of Tim Howard. He was that kind of goalkeeper as well. In the Berhalter system where he wants the U.S. men's national team to build from the back, the goalkeeper becomes very important in the build-up play as well. But, I mean, my first priority is give me a guy who's a shot stopper. Give me a guy who can, swing the momentum of the game, really. I mean, and sometimes, I think we saw this with Kenneth Vermeer a little bit in Cincinnati last Wednesday. Sometimes you have goalkeepers that can affect the momentum of a game, where everyone's bombing forward and peppering you and you're just making save after save after save, and your team can build off that from a momentum standpoint, a confidence standpoint. And I think Vermeer is actually a really good example because he's not good in build-up play. He's not a good distributor. He's uncomfortable with the ball at his feet. And I'm not saying Matt Turner is any of that, but I prioritize shot stopping over those other attributes. Look, Zach Steffen is still going to be, he or Horvath, I think, are still probably a little bit ahead of Matt Turner right now going into the octagonal. But Matt Turner is going to be the third goalkeeper at least as we go into World Cup qualifying. At least.
And I'm good with that because it means Brad Guzan will not be leaving Atlanta United to sit on the bench again like he's done this summer. NYC's probably mad too with Sean Johnson being away. I mean, it's the same kind of thing, but we talked about it going into this tournament. Matt Turner was going to be the guy. They needed to see him in an extended run. He has more than delivered to the point that if he's starting game one against El Salvador of the octagonal, fine. That's fine. I have no problem with him. I'm not going to worry about it. And if Miles Robinson's starting next to John Brooks in game one of the octagonal, fine. No problem. Not going to worry. And it's not just because he's an Atlanta guy. It's because of what he's done in this tournament and what he did in a knockout match last night where, say what you want about Miles Robinson with the ball at his feet, 59 of 62 passing. He only had to go long once. He nailed it. 69 touches. Didn't give the ball away but 3 times. Won 6 of his 9 duels. Won a tackle, blocked a shot, 3 clearances. Just really, really solid. And he is holding this back line together right now without Walker Zimmerman to the point that, I think we talked about this earlier in the year with leadership with Atlanta United. Miles wasn't really looked at being that guy yet. I think he is emerging both with Atlanta and with the U.S. men's national team as a leader. That part of his personality is starting to come out.
Which is cool to see, especially with the men's national team, because this is really the first time he's had a chance to consistently start for the men's national team. There have been one-offs here or there where we've seen him with the men's national team. But to my knowledge, Jason, unless we're talking about a U19 situation or something like that, I think this is the first time where Miles has been an everyday starter in a tournament setting for the U.S. men's national team. And I love the fact that he's accepted that leadership role and he's earned it. Maybe he hasn't accepted it. Maybe he took it, which is even better.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's even better. I've said a couple times, I think I've said with you, I think I've said on 92.9, that Miles Robinson next week, when he comes back to Atlanta United, he will come back to this club a better player because of what he has gone through over the last couple weeks. I think the seasoning that you get in an international tournament, granted it is the Gold Cup, we're not talking about the World Cup or anything like that, but the experience you can get playing in an international tournament like this, it's nothing but positives for Atlanta United. And honestly, I think Atlanta United, to the credit of Anton Walks and Alan Franco and George Campbell and a couple other people, have been able to tread water without Miles, which I think, honestly, when we talk about leadership, I think that's a testament to Anton Walks. So it's good all around, and I agree. Going back to Guzan for a second, I agree with you. I mean, it's frustrating when you lose a player for a month and they're not actually going to play in the tournament. That's really frustrating. But I think Alec Cann's done just as good a job as anything that Brad Guzan would be able to do. So in that respect, I think Atlanta United's been fortunate. And I think it's a credit to Can. I think it's a credit to Walks and Franco. I think it's a credit to Ronald Hernandez, honestly. That Atlanta United's getting the left back play that they're getting right now without George Bello. So long story short, Bello, Guzan, and especially Robinson will come back to Atlanta United as better players than what they were before this tournament. The good news about Bello, if you're looking for a silver lining, assuming he doesn't play against Mexico, you can probably put him right back in Wednesday night, and fitness is not going to be a concern. You might be a little bit more concerned about that, not necessarily fitness, but just usage for Miles Robinson, who is going to have a lot of 90-minute shifts in his bank account going into that Wednesday match in Montreal.
Yeah, and it works out well because you've got cover at center back with Franco and Walks, who've been good. You have Campbell as well, who's been good in his minutes that we've seen here lately. Left back, Ronald Hernandez has done great, but he's also played the last 2 games. He was cramping up a little bit at the end of the Cincinnati game. Didn't really see that against Columbus, which was a good sign. He'll go tonight, most likely, based off his previous performances against Orlando. And knowing that you could drop Bello straight in on Wednesday helps you a little bit. It just gives you a little bit of extra freshness. And if Robinson needs a little more time, if he needs Wednesday off and can come back into the team on Saturday, that works. You've got the cover on both sides, both positions to do it. Tonight gets really interesting with Orlando because of Orlando's last match. You know, I'm really fascinated to see how they look mentally coming into this match. A 5-0 loss can go a couple different ways. It can be a dramatic wake-up call. It can also be something that really demoralizes you. And in the past, Orlando City has been a team that has looked weak mentally. I'll even go through last year's playoffs. They looked weak mentally with the just explosions they had at different points with situations. And this was from players, from technical staff, like across the board. That's what gives me a little bit of pause about tonight. Like, how do they come in? Are they going to be able to pick themselves up off the mat? Are they going to come in angry? Are they going to come in looking for blood? Are they going to come in kind of shaken? I really don't know where their heads are going to be at.
It's a good question. You would, I think, to their credit, and I do agree with your observation about the playoffs last year, where I think they came completely unglued from a discipline standpoint, came completely unglued. But I think for the most part, since Oscar Perea has taken over as their manager, they've been a little bit better at responding to those emotional moments. With that playoff game, I think it was New England, right? Being the outlier, the absolute outlier.
Well, NYC was too. I mean, the game before they were out of their minds.
Well, that's true. But you know how things can snowball within a match.
True.
I think the bigger question for me tonight about Orlando is, they're coming into this match likely without Gillespie, unless we get a massive surprise.
Yeah.
They're going to play Brandon Austin, who statistically has been 50% save percentage this year, one clean sheet. Not going to, in all likelihood, not going to have Nani. Emmanuel Moss in his second match. I think you saw the back line look very, very flimsy. Very, very flimsy last Sunday night at New York City. Mm-hmm. They were outshot in that match 23-5. And I know Orlando concedes a lot of possession, but they have 39% of the ball in that match. So they just got whooped. They got whooped. And sometimes, like, I'll use Atlanta United as an example. Atlanta United has not really been run off the pitch by anyone this year other than maybe Chicago. And I think Atlanta United may be more to blame for that than the Chicago Fire. So that's why I think Atlanta United has responded pretty well to defeats that they've had this year, because they've been able to have confidence in some of those defeats that they've played well. For a team like Orlando City, you're coming off a 5-0 shellacking. You're either going to be really, really emotionally fired up for this match against your rival and on national TV in front of a capacity crowd, or you're going to play scared. And I think a lot of that is going to have to do with how Perea sets this team up tonight. Mm-hmm. Look, you're going to be without Tesho. Who else are they going to have? They're going to have a couple players back. I mean, DK. Mauricio Perea comes back. That's big.
Yeah.
I mean, he was out on yellow cards on Sunday, so that's really, really big. But I don't know. I think Orlando, the other thing you have to say about them is, as good as they have been the last 2 years, and as poor as Atlanta United has been the last 2 years, it's not like Orlando City has really dominated Atlanta United here in the last 2 years.
Right.
They did win twice, and the win late season in Orlando last year was a dominant win.
Yeah.
But I think there were different circumstances surrounding that game than this match tonight. Look, Atlanta United pulled a scoreless draw in this stadium back in April when Atlanta United was just trying to kind of adapt to the Heinze way of things.
Well, it was coming off of a short rest from Alajuelense as well.
Correct. Yeah.
It was,
I think it was
3
after
days, 2 days in between?
Right? They went Wednesday, Saturday, I think. Or was it Thursday, Saturday? I'm trying to remember.
I think it was Thursday,
at least
Sunday,
Wednesday,
or Wednesday, Saturday. It was a short rest.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the game was definitely on a Saturday. I remember that.
Okay.
So it was Wednesday, Saturday, and conditions really hurt Atlanta United that day, too. I mean, we heard about that after the fact.
Yeah.
It was in bright sunshine. It was very, very hot and humid. It's going to be warm and humid tonight, but not in sunshine, which is a big, big difference. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't think Orlando's going to feel very, very confident going into this match tonight. You hope that Rob Valentino has Atlanta United feeling very confident going into this match tonight. I think the public-facing messaging that Valentino has had over the last couple of days would indicate to me that he will have this group feeling good about themselves coming into tonight.
Yeah, and that's going to go a long way against an Orlando team that I don't know how they're going to feel about themselves. And, Orlando, we were talking about it earlier during the U.S. women's game with the Netherlands. The Dutch are a team that is very close, and we can compare them to Orlando in this scenario a little bit. The Dutch got to a World Cup final. They did win a Euro, but they were hosting it. They are new kids on the block in the scene in that they hadn't been in a World Cup since 2015. So today, they were trying to get over that hump and beat the U.S. and advance to an Olympic semifinal. This is the first Olympics they've been in. They weren't able to do it. They came up a little bit short. And I think in the penalties you saw mentally some of the challenges of being that team who's trying to get over the hump. We watched Orlando in 2018 really suffer with that in the infamous water bottle throwing game where they were coming in on a winning streak, but they were coming from behind in every game. And even from the opening whistle, they felt like they were in that young punks trying to prove it stage, like really trying to be intense, really trying to be nasty, really trying to get in your face, just over jacked up. And they struggled. And we saw that rear its ugly head again for them in the playoffs last year. I'm really curious because it feels like every year, and they've gotten so much better. Oscar Pereira was absolutely the right signing. But 2018, they came in looking like a team when they hired Jason Kreis, who, look, they were considered to be a team that could go into the playoffs that year. And they weren't ready.
Yes.
And it all fell apart. And it fell apart last year in the postseason. And are we in that stage now where it's falling apart again? Because a 5-0 loss, if I'm Oscar Pereira, I'm terrified. Because who is going to know what buttons to push here? Because, look, this team's a hard one to figure out. Nani has been the emotional leader of this group a lot, and I thought he was counterproductive in the postseason last year with his leadership. He was out of control, and everybody fed off of him. Huan fed off of him. Others fed off of him. Is it Nani being emotional? Is that going to be what buttons need to be pushed? Is it somebody, more quieter going around, putting an arm around people and saying, look, throw the 5-0 game away. We were missing Pereira. We're missing the forwards. We're going to be fine. Put it in trash. Move on. Is it somebody going around and challenging people? Is it saying, look, that's not acceptable. We can't play that way. I don't know who does that, and I don't know what buttons they push. I don't know what Orlando City we're going to see tonight.
Let's go back to that 2018 match for a second, because I do remember vividly that Orlando, although they were playing well going into that match, they were having real problems coming back after giving up the first goal. And that was a match where, if I remember, I can't remember. I know Barco scored first. I don't remember if Orlando equalized or if they went down 2-0 and then got one back late. I
think it
don't
was the
remember
latter.
how that played out. Yeah, I think, but I'm not positive. But, I do remember vividly going into that match, you and I discussing the value of the first goal.
Mm-hmm.
This year, Orlando is 1-3-2, 1 win, 3 losses, 2 draws when giving up the first goal. But when Orlando scores the first goal, 5-0-0. When Atlanta United concedes the first goal, 0-5-2. Now, I mean, there are 2 draws there. So, I mean, we know Atlanta United has come back to pull a couple draws in that situation. But to me, that's the whole match tonight. And I think it speaks to the mental state of both teams, especially so Atlanta United. If Atlanta United can put an early one on the board, I thought it was so critical for them to do that against Columbus on Saturday. I know you did too. Because we felt that if Atlanta United could put one on the board early, it would force Columbus to try to open up and play, and that would open up some more possibilities for Atlanta United. And unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. Tonight, I think it becomes vital for Atlanta United to get the first goal, maybe try to take the crowd out of this match a little bit, and put that emotional pressure on Orlando, where we have seen there's probably some self-doubt after a 5-0 loss. Maybe Orlando comes unglued or unraveled a little bit if they concede first tonight. So that, to me, is the whole match. If Atlanta United can find the first goal, I think they're going to be in excellent shape tonight. If they concede the first goal tonight, I'm very concerned. Because Orlando has not even blown an opening goal for a draw this year. They're 5-0-0. And I think getting the first goal could potentially give Orlando the license to do what MLS teams do against Atlanta United, what New England did, what Columbus did. If Orlando scores first, they're going to use that as license to try to take the oxygen out of the match.
Yeah, and look, they're a really well-organized team generally under Oscar Pareja. And it's maybe the most surprising element of the game against New York City that they were so unorganized, because we're just not used to seeing that with them. Jumping into possession and how that goes. We know Atlanta's going to want the ball here in this one. That's how they play. That's not going to change anytime soon. Orlando is really 50-50, 50.3% of the possession. So they can go either way. I'm really interested to see what idea Pareja takes here. Does he try to take the ball away from Atlanta, thinking that they don't know how to play without it? Or does he concede, like we've seen so many teams do here lately, like you just mentioned, and say, I'm not scared of them in the attack right now, so they can have the ball. I'd rather try to hit them on the counter. And Orlando has the players to be dangerous on the counter with pace.
Well, I think a lot of that's going to come down to film study and scouting. In my opinion, if Orlando has done the proper film study and scouting on Atlanta United's last 2 matches, if I were Orlando, watching those last 2 matches, would not feel safe conceding possession to Atlanta United and making the assumption that they're not threatening in the attack, because they are. I think the last 2 matches have shown that Atlanta United is razor close to a bucket of goals, the way things have coalesced in the final third. So if Orlando has done the proper amount of scouting and film study on those last 2 matches, I don't see a situation where they could responsibly believe that it would be a wise idea to just concede possession to Atlanta United because they don't have to worry about them in the attack. Going back to the possession number in New York, though, because that one really jumped off the page to me, 39%. And I mentioned the shots were 23-5. I do wonder if Oscar Pareja's messaging to his team about that match has been along the lines of, look, it was at Yankee Stadium. It's just a weird night. It's a weird place to play. Mm-hmm. You know, everyone who goes in there has trouble. It's futsal. It's not soccer. Don't even worry about it. Let's move on. And you know what? You wouldn't necessarily be wrong for trying to position it in that way. So, you know, when we talk about Orlando's season possession numbers, you mentioned it's 50-50. I'm throwing the New York game out as an outlier. It's probably a few points ahead of 50%.
A little bit, yeah,
on their possession this year. So I think both teams are going to want the ball. And I think that's going to be one of the fun things that we're going to see play out tonight. Is both teams are going to want the ball. I think it's going to create some counter-pressing opportunities, and that could spring counter-attacks. And that's why I think this should be, I hope, a very fun, wide-open match tonight.
Yeah, a couple things as you dig deeper into these two teams. Shot-creating actions, which is kind of step one to creating goals. Atlanta United is creating per 90 minutes more than 2 more shots than Orlando. Shot creating actions, they are 20.87 per 90. Orlando is 18.53 per 90. But then when you look at goal creating actions, Orlando is a full 1.1 more, 2.73 to 1.6. That feels like the missing element for Atlanta United. And I know we bang our heads against the wall about this because I think the quality of chances has improved. I think the quantity has improved as well, along with that quality increase. And they're still not finding the goals right now. It's hard to break it down, and everybody has asked to do this, and I don't really think it's all that possible. Okay, you look at these last 3 games, and you're averaging close to 20 shots a game. Your XG is high. I mean, it's good, so you're not worried about that. Your key passes is good, so you're creating chances. You are, not just getting rebound shots, not just getting junk shots. You're creating shots. You're getting shots. You're forcing saves. There's only so much more you can do outside of finding a goal. Is there anything that's missing for you in the attack, in the attacking half, that we're not seeing? I mean, the only thing I come back to is maybe creating a few more chances from turnovers, from pressing situations, from picking those kinds of elements up. Outside of that, it's just converting.
Well, and I even think we saw in the Columbus match that there were some opportunities that came off turnovers. Sure. Certainly so in the Cincinnati match.
Sure.
Certainly so. So if you're zeroing in on the last 2 matches, I can't nitpick a whole lot other than maybe the final ball needs to be released a tad sooner. Maybe you need to be a little more brave shooting from outside the 18, maybe. But, I mean, it's just one of those things you cannot really explain other than tip your cap to Kenneth Vermeer. He made some big saves in Cincinnati. And tip your cap to the Columbus crew for the way that they handled Atlanta United in the attack. And Aloy Room made a couple big saves. I mean, not nearly as many as Vermeer. But no, I mean, and that's where I think Atlanta United's got to feel confident but also frustrated. And which one of those emotions is going to play out tonight? Again, it goes back to that value of the first goal for me. Because Atlanta United, and I think Rob Valentino said this publicly, Atlanta United's done so much correct in the last 2 matches. They deserve to have more than 1 point out of the last 2 matches. But, oh, boy, what scares me tonight, Jason, if Orlando scores first tonight, it's the here we go again.
Play out, yeah.
Here we go again. Why can't we get a break? Here we go again. So that to me is the whole match. But no, I mean, I can't really identify anything that I would like to see different right now in the final third for Atlanta United in the last 2 matches. The numbers back it up. They're more than double ahead of their shot per match pace under Heinze in the last 2 matches. The shots on target, it hasn't quite doubled, but it's gone up substantially. The XG has doubled. The key passes, I think, have close to doubled. The corners, I think, have doubled. So it's all there. Just got to go in now. I know there's not much analysis in that, but that's where we are right now. It's just got to go in.
I know. And Jared Smith's back with us. Jared, we saw in the Twos game on Wednesday that difference. And the Twos have struggled to create chances. They're also playing a lot of teenagers in some of these moments, so it's understandable. But the biggest difference I felt like watching the second team on Wednesday versus what we've seen from the first team, they got the goals, so you're able to play from a more comfortable position, but the movement off the ball was so good. And I think that's improving for the MLS side. But that felt like maybe the biggest difference. A guy like Robbie Mertz being that metronome for the second team and pass and move, helped open things up more. Maybe it's going to take Marcelino Moreno to continue to build on good performances to do some of those things. Get some help from a Mateus Rossetto or whoever is going to be paired with him in the central midfield. Omar Sadic, who talked about playing that number 8 role on countdown to kickoff. The pass and move element was something that stands out with me for the twos that maybe we're not seeing as much of with the first team.
I think it's a matter of sometimes just getting a pep in your step, and then maybe it is getting that first goal like we saw the twos do the other night, where they get it through a penalty, and then you kind of feel that momentum because let's not forget the twos went a long time between wins as well. Had good performances, not dissimilar from the first team. Had fought back for some draws, had some losses where they fought really well and just couldn't get 3 points. I think you get that first goal and you get a bit of pep in your step and everybody's moving a little bit quicker. They get that little burst of energy of this is it. This is where we need to be. This is how we're going to climb out of this hole. And I think if you can get that first one tonight, you can see it build up a bit on the energy front. And it goes a lot to it, to the mentality of it. Of, after a while, man, it does beat you down of, oh, we're playing well and we're just not finding the results. Well, yeah, that sucks. And it can just be exhausting to play well and not get something to show for it consistently. So you get that first one tonight, I think you get a pep in your step and you're looking at a Orlando team that gave up 5 goals. It was on a U12 pitch against New York City, but they gave up 5 goals. You got to be feeling like, hey, they're going to have some guys back in the attack. DK is not one of them, but we know we can go score on them. Let's go do it, and let's find a little bit of energy going down there and try and put Orlando on the back foot in their own house.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what Orlando's lineup looks like. No Akindele, no DK. They don't really have a true number 9 to play there. Alexandre Pato is still listed as questionable. We haven't seen him on the field since Game 1 against Atlanta when he injured his knee. I'm not really seeing much out of Orlando City coverage to indicate that he's ready to go. I think he has been training, but nobody's really talking about him ready to play. So I don't know if he's going to go. Nani and Chris Mueller are both, I think, would be expected to play. We know the situation with Mueller at the end of his contract. He's going to Hibs in Scotland. There's been some talk they might try to accelerate that. I don't know if they will or not. But you've got a lot of wide players, and Nani, who's most comfortable wide, and Mueller, who's most comfortable wide, Van der Vader, who's a dangerous player from a wing position, Alvarado, who's a dangerous player from a wing position. But you don't really have a number 9 to finish things off. Pereira will be back as a number 10, so I think the creativity is there for Orlando. Atlanta will have to deal with, I think, a very different kind of a challenge tonight defensively, something we haven't seen maybe all season, with a team that isn't really going to play with a true number 9. And I think that could be a little complicated for 2 guys in Anton Walks and Alan Franco, Mike, who have played together here lately, but haven't played together a whole lot and do predominantly speak 2 different languages, where you're not going to have a number 9 to fixate on. Like, if it's Alvarado playing as a 9, he's going to drift wide because that's what he wants to do. They've got to find a way to communicate tonight and be really effective with it.
Yeah, and, not having Brad Guzan as the goalkeeper to aid in that communication scares you a little bit too. But I think Atlanta United will handle it well. I think, for all the concerns we have had about communication and all of the things that might not be fully within your control when you lose players like Miles Robinson and Brad Guzan to international call-ups. Atlanta United's responded really, really well to those challenges. And again, I'll point to the goals that they have given up since Robinson and Guzan left for the men's national team. In Nashville, you had a penalty, and then you had one off a set piece, correct? That was the other. Columbus was a set piece. Cincinnati was a nice curler by Acosta. So, you're not giving up bad goals. You're not giving up a ton of goals. You've given up 1 goal per match in your last 2. You should have more than 1 point out of those 2 matches to show for it when you're conceding that rarely. So I think they'll handle it well. I really, really do. I mean, look, Orlando will be creative. They're going to be dynamic, and they have quality. But I think Atlanta United has quality too. And to me, this is where Santiago Sosa becomes a big, big factor as well. Someone who can really aid in that, not only communication, but just cohesiveness between Franco Walks and Alec Can. I think having Sosa available tonight is massive. I'd be very, very scared going into this match tonight if Sosa was not available.
Now, Jared, I want to go a step further into Orlando and what they have available and how Atlanta might be able to deal with it. So on Orlando's injury report, Sebastian Mendez is listed as out with a lower body injury. They've been wanting to get him back into the fold. He gives them a lot of bite in that central midfield. Junior Urso is listed as questionable. Haven't seen him in a while. Lower body injury. That, as much as the lack of a number 9 hurts Orlando, the lack of some of it is just presence with Mendez and with Urso, Junior Urso, and what they bring. Uri Rosell is a ball-playing central midfielder. He doesn't intimidate you. Sosa gives you a little bit of both from the Atlanta side. Rosell is really good on the ball, but you're not worried about him getting stuck into tackles and knocking you around. This feels like a game where if it's Rosell and maybe it's Andres Perea, who is more of an attack-minded central midfielder, maybe he has to play deeper. If it's that kind of a central midfield for Orlando, in front of their back line, where they've got most everybody back, Atlanta, I feel like, has a huge advantage in their attacking central midfield. If that's Moreno, if that's Sejdic, if that's Hosetu, assuming everybody's available, who do you want to see in that group, and who do you think can really cause an Orlando central midfield a lot of problems?
I mean, Moreno I'd like to keep centrally, just for what he's been able to create recently, and I know he can drift and be impactful, but I like the way he kind of pulled things out a bit. I mean, you want to talk about being able to get in behind. Having a guy like Moreno and having Hosetu at times when he was able to pull the trigger against Cincinnati, having that in your back pocket, being able to pull the trigger and force the defenders to step out on you, it's not something to sneeze at. You're going to want guys who can, win on the dribble. That's what you got. I mean, it's going to be a situation, I think, as well, though, that you're going to want to stretch them out a bit. I don't know how you set that midfield up because, Orlando's in their own house in a rivalry game. I imagine they're going to want to get forward. Can you stretch them out with a turnover, and can you get out in transition and then win those 1v1s against guys who aren't going to get stuck in? Force them into situations where, let's say you have a defender for Orlando who has to pick up a yellow card in the 20th minute, breaking up a counter, and you put them under a lot of pressure where they have to be perfect against technical players who like to win 1v1s.
Yeah, that if I'm looking at a part of the field that I think Atlanta can control and dominate and turn the game in, it's that one for me. It's the attacking midfield of Atlanta against the defensive midfield of Orlando. That zone feels like something that Atlanta can handle. And Mike, we heard from Sejdic after training this week. Rob Valentino wants him to play, sees him as a number 8, sees him as a guy who can get in between those lines and find shots, and he has found some shots in the last couple of games. Hosetu can do that as well, and I thought he looked good against Columbus. If it's down to those two, who do you think should get the start tonight?
Hosetu. I think you're strong enough with Sosa, Walks, and Franco where you can be able to be a little more assertive going forward with Josetu and Moreno. And I just think that fits more into Valentino's let's play brave and take chances philosophy. Not saying that Heinze was more pragmatic or less pragmatic than Heinze, but I'm very optimistic based on what I've seen out of Josetu in these last two matches. And I think he interplays very, very well with Moreno. I want to see Atlanta United be assertive and ask questions of Orlando's back line tonight. I think having Josetu in there, and Sejdic do it too, but I rate Josetu offensively maybe a little bit ahead of Sejdic right now, just based on what I've seen in the last two matches. I would go with a Josetu Moreno midfield. I wouldn't be shocked if it were Sejdic, and that would be a fine option too. But I want to see Atlanta United be brave and take chances tonight. I think that quantity of chance creation that we've seen in the last two matches, a lot of that kind of starts with Mateus Josetu, to be totally honest with you.
Yeah, I'd love to see Josetu really break out in this kind of a game. I think he's going to have the opportunity to do it. He talked this week as well in media availabilities, and I think he displayed some of the frustration he's had with injuries. We know the paperwork issues that have slowed him down, and both have been completely outside of his control. Last year dealing with everything, with getting his visa. This year, dealing with the green card, being stuck, travel with COVID, all of those kinds of things. But then he's had injuries on top of it. I'm sure he is just chomping at the bit to get going here. And he has the ability, if you go back and look at some of his highlights from Atlético Paranaense in Brazil, he has the ability to give you a lot of what Emerson Hyndman gave you. I think maybe more goal scoring from that position, maybe not as much in terms of the defensive side that Hyndman gives you. But in a game like tonight, I like that trade-off. I like that situation. Sejdic gives you more defensively than Josetu does. But on a night like tonight, where it might be Uri Rosell and Andres Perea as the holding midfield for Orlando, I'd love to see Josetu get the opportunity and really go at them and be aggressive and look for those shots from distance, but look for those opportunities to get into the 18 and create some goals. Yeah,
I agree. And I think what Jared brings up is really, really important, too. I would love to see Atlanta United with some situational awareness tonight. I don't know a whole lot about the referee, Rubio Vasquez, and his tendencies on throwing cards, but Jared's right. I mean, try to get whacked a little bit in this match tonight. It's okay if you end up suffering 20 fouls in this match tonight, which I think is a pretty good possibility, if it can create some set pieces off of which you can score, and if it can put Orlando in a position where they're going to have to eventually back off of the strategy a little bit because they're at risk of a send-off. So, again, I think the best way you can put Orlando in that position of discomfort is by starting a Josetu tonight in the midfield with Moreno, at least as that's how I feel. I could be totally wrong, but it feels like that would be the more aggressive play that might throw Orlando a little more off balance.
Jarrett, who scares you the most for Orlando tonight?
If he plays, it's Nani. Because Orlando can be back against the wall, and Atlanta can carry play and have 15 shots and 8 shots on goal and 7 of them in the box, and can totally lose that game 1-0 because Nani just does Nani things.
Yeah, I mean,
he
they
can
be
also
bad.
completely unnerve his own team and unravel his own team, but he is totally capable of continuing a frustrating trend of they played well, but.
Yeah, there is that. They can be bad, and Nani can magically appear and ruin your day. They have that ability. I'm worried about Benji Michel, because I think he might end up being that number 9 for Orlando, but he's more of a winger. And I'm just worried that the movement that scares me for Orlando, we've talked about Perea and Pereira, which is going to be fun on the broadcast. We're going to have some good times with that. I already know. We might go first names, Mike. We might have to go first names a lot.
Yeah, maybe.
It's going to be brutal. But both of them, and more Perea, the player who came over from Colombia, the one who was born in Tampa, who's played for the U.S. men's national team, making deeper runs. If Michel drifts wide, which he wants to do, and I think he's very creative, somebody's going to fill that space. And I don't think it's naturally the number 10, Pereira. I think it's going to be more of Perea making the deeper run into that spot. That's what scares me from a sequence perspective. That's what worries me is Sosa, Walks, Franco have to be ready to deal with that, because the players they're defending are not going to come from the normal places that they're used to defending them from. And that can be a big challenge. What worries you about tonight, Mike?
You know, it's interesting. You know, and I agree with everything you're saying about Pereira and Perea. I agree with everything Jared's saying about Nani. Do you know who on this Orlando team actually has the most career goals against Atlanta United on this current Orlando team?
Mueller?
Chris Mueller.
Okay.
Chris Mueller. Yeah, Chris Mueller.
Please come
now
get him, Hibbs. Please come get him.
Yeah, I know, right? Now his goal-scoring production's down this year. You know, he's played a few less matches. He's only made 8 starts. That's the one that kind of scares me tonight, just because of his track record against Atlanta United and Atlanta United's issues sometimes finding him in the final third. By the way, Mueller, this is the other interesting thing. Of all the active players on Orlando City, Mueller has the most goals against Atlanta United in his career with 2. You know, as often as these teams have played, tonight's going to be, the 15th all-time meeting between Atlanta United and Orlando City across all competitions. And Orlando's 2 most prolific goal scorers against Atlanta United are Dom Dwyer and Chris Mueller, both with 2. You know, Joseph has scored 6 times against Orlando. Barco scored twice, Almiron twice, Villalba twice. Just thought that was interesting. But no, I mean, I don't go into a match against Orlando City not worried about Chris Mueller and not worried about Atlanta United having to locate him, because I feel like he has been able to get into some dangerous kind of sneaky spots against Atlanta United, get some high XG chances and convert on those chances. So for me, again, assuming he plays, I mean, he did not play in New York. Assuming he plays, it would be Chris Mueller.
Yeah, being sort of false 9-ish tonight because they just don't really have a true number 9 available this evening. Mueller can take up that space and be dangerous. Either Pereira or Perea can do that as well. Michel, Alvarado, Vandervater, any of those guys can jump in there. It's going to be really interesting to see how Orlando City is structured tonight. I think we know how Atlanta will come in a 4-3-3. I really don't know what Orlando looks like in terms of the attack. Before we get into a couple other things off the board, broadcast plans tonight, Mike, what time are we on?
Broadcast plans. We are on at 7:30 Eastern Time with the Five Stripes Countdown on Sports Radio 92.9. The game kickoff will be a little after 8 o'clock. I think 8:08 is the kick tonight. And we'll have a brief full-time report after the match. Also on 92.9 The Game on the Odyssey app and on the Atlanta United app as well.
You can catch us anywhere. I know there are some Atlanta fans who are going to be in the building. I've had some people reach out to say that they are here or they are coming.
Quite a few. Yeah, I think I saw Sydney Hunt's going to be down here as well tonight. So
Sydney Hunt's covering the game for
well.
MLSsoccer.com. Our good friend Abby is going to be here tonight. She is watching on the Twitch pitch. It's a fun away day. It's an intense day. I mean, I'm looking forward to the atmosphere, even maybe some of the 4-letter words that get hurled in our direction, and maybe certain fingers that get pointed in our direction. That's completely fine. That's what makes it fun.
I do wonder. I mean, we haven't been here since August of 2019.
Yeah.
So it's been 2 full years. I wonder if things have chilled out at all. Because, yeah, you're right. It's a little bit chippy when you go to Orlando and you're wearing anything with Atlanta on it. I do wonder if some of that has toned down a little bit in the last 2 years. But I love it. I love the atmosphere. I've said numerous times, and I know Atlanta fans hate me for saying it, but it is true. I really enjoy coming down here to Orlando to do games. I really enjoy doing games in their stadium. It has a feel to it. It has a vibe to it. It's a very well-designed stadium that's been copied by a lot of the new stadiums that we're seeing pop up around the league. So everyone who's coming down to the game tonight, obviously be safe and all of that. But I think you're going to have a good time. The atmosphere is going to be intense, and that's the way I like it. And I think that's the way the players like it, too.
Yeah, same here. Jarrett, Mike, thanks for hanging out this morning. Appreciate it.
All right. I'll find a place for us to have lunch in a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to grab some lunch. I'm going to talk on 92.9 with the midday show at 12:20. For people who have been watching on Twitch, the audio will get posted to our podcast feed here in just a little bit. I know it's been a little glitchy and a little weird. I blame it on Applebee's and Orlando Internet. Everything is Applebee's fault, basically. I think that's a safe bet. But it's going to get posted.
Should have gone to Ruby Tuesdays.
Say that again, Jared.
You should have gone to Ruby Tuesdays. Or find a Wendy's that has a super bar still. There's got to be one in Orlando.
Super bars are bad things during COVID times, Jared.
You don't have to eat at the super bar.
Oh, I missed the super bar, though.
They have it. I'm a little concerned right
bar
now.
I used to make taco salads all the time in the super bar and loved it.
Oh, I love the super bar.
I miss that thing. I loved it.
Yeah, no, I did Postmates last night, so I did not do Applebee's or any of that. It was just fine, and it was a very good Mexican restaurant that I picked out. So
I had a tuna sandwich from 7-Eleven after the draft show ended at 11 o'clock. It was the only thing open. So I'll be eager to find a good
show.
Yeah, so I'll be eager to find a good spot for lunch for us in a little bit. But yeah, Jared, good hearing your voice again. Jason, I'll see you downstairs.
Yep. Thanks everybody for listening. Mucha platio.
Mucha platio.
A lot of us are looking for ways to start our day feeling more joy and appreciation. And while some of us write gratitude lists or do yoga, others pour themselves a bowl of their favorite cereal, Honey Nut Cheerios. Because not only are Honey Nut Cheerios delicious, they can help lower cholesterol as part of a heart-healthy diet. So maybe the secret to a great mood all day is a little yoga. Then writing your gratitude list over a bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios. Learn more about a heart-healthy lifestyle at Cheerios.com.
15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
My dad used to say that.
Sure, yeah. It's from Geico.
Yeah, whenever I would ask my dad for life advice, he'd sit me down and say, son, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. And look at me now, a well-adjusted adult with a drawer full of plastic bags I'll never use.
Okay, I'm confused. Was your dad a licensed Geico agent?
Nah, he was just a real good dad.